Opinions vary.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Opinions Vary. That's Opinions with an A. Please like, share, and subscribe. And we've been lied to. Well, those of us who've been paying attention know we've been lied to for the past 4 years. Some people are just waking up to that fact that they were lied to from day one of Joe Biden's presidency. He was an invalid from day one, incapable of doing a job, and a Wall Street Journal report has now come out and confirmed that. A lot of aides that worked in the White House for cabinet members, Congress people are finally coming out and saying, yeah, there were days where Joe Biden just didn't have it, and we just have to wait till the next day. Absolutely incredible. It's the scandal of a lifetime. We basically had an absentee president for the last 4 years during COVID, during the Afghanistan withdrawal, during this inflation spike, during so many other things. You can go on, and we had no president at the helm of this country. Forget about Kamala Harris. We know she couldn't do it even if she is with it, which is debatable to begin with. Anyway, we're going to hear from the Young Turks, and then we're going to hear from CNN, and we'll comment along the way. Let's go.
The Wall Street Journal has now put out an expose regarding the obvious cover-up carried out by those closest to President Joe Biden when it came to his mental decline. Now, there are a lot of details here. I'm going to try to get to all of the highlights, or at least as many of them as I can, starting with the fact that there were already massive red flags in regard to President Joe Biden's mental decline early on in the beginning months of his administration. But we didn't hear about that, did we? Until it was way too late. Now, a lot of people like us suspected it, but now we have some confirmation that those closest to him saw it and were concerned about it.
I will give it to the Young Turks. 𝐶𝐭, whatever you say his last name, he was saying this way back when, that Joe Biden during the campaign was out of it and could not be president because he was mentally unfit.
Administration officials noticed that the president became tired if meetings went long and would make mistakes. They issued a directive to some powerful lawmakers and allies seeking one-on-one time. The exchanges should be short and focused. For example, they avoided doing any of these meetings first thing in the morning because that was when Biden was struggling the most.
No, he was probably sleeping.
And if the president was having what they were referring to as an off day, meetings would just be canceled altogether. In the spring of 2020.
Remember when they would call lids? It's called a lid when the White House is done commenting on anything for the day. They were calling lids at 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, and nobody said a word about it. It's as if it was normal. It's anything but normal, far from normal.
Again, very early on in his administration, a national security official explained to another aide why a meeting needed to be rescheduled. Quote, "He has good days and bad days, and today was a bad day, so we're going to address this tomorrow," end quote, the former aide recalled the official saying.
Imagine.
And so there's more. For instance, congressional Democrats complained that they couldn't even get a hold of Joe Biden to talk to him about policies, his agenda, what the best path forward was strategically in order to accomplish his agenda. So for instance, Representative Adam Smith claimed that he wanted to get in touch with Joe Biden ahead of the Afghanistan withdrawal in 2021 because he was alarmed at the overly optimistic comments he was hearing from Biden about what that withdrawal would look like. So Adam Smith was like, there are some issues at play here, so let's just meet so I can tell you what the concerns are. That way the withdrawal will be a little smoother. He says, "I was begging them to set expectations low," said Smith, who had worked extensively on the issue and harbored concerns about how the withdrawal might go. He sought to talk to Biden directly to share his insights about the region, but couldn't get on the phone with him.
If you're one of those families, 13 military members that were killed during that withdrawal, I'm filing a lawsuit against Joe Biden, against the United States for billions of dollars. Billions of dollars, and everyone, Adam Smith, you're getting a subpoena, and everybody in the White House, you're getting a subpoena. Are you kidding me?
In the end, as we know, that withdrawal, even though we were supportive of withdrawing from Afghanistan, the way it was carried out was pretty disastrous. So 13 US service members and more than 170 Afghans died as a result. And Smith made a critical comment to the Washington Post about how the administration was lacking a clear view of the US-backed, Ashraf Ghani government. And this is like when the withdrawal was happening. So he gives that quote to the Washington Post, and get a load of this. Anthony Blinken hits him up on the phone and just starts chiding him for having the audacity to say something even a little critical about Biden.
Anthony Blinken, you'll be getting a subpoena also.
But later, Biden himself called Smith to apologize, and that was allegedly the only time he spoke to Biden throughout his presidency. Okay, and that was like an ongoing issue. That's what you hear over and over again, that people couldn't get any access to the president, Democrats in particular, and that when it came to things like cabinet meetings, they were very rare. And we're going to get to those details in just a minute. So
the entire cabinet, subpoena. Karine Jean-Pierre, subpoena.
let's talk a little bit about the cabinet meetings.
Jen Psaki, subpoena.
And we'll do a little comparative analysis between Biden's cabinet meetings, or the frequency of them, versus Obama and Trump. So he did not hold very many cabinet meetings, which is insane, especially at such a chaotic time. Remember, he came in as the pandemic was still happening. Now, interactions between Biden and many of his cabinet members were relatively infrequent and often tightly scripted. At least one cabinet member stopped requesting calls with the president because it was clear that such requests wouldn't be welcome, a former senior cabinet aide said. So,
in this cabinet, how was nobody in this cabinet trying to put the 25th on Biden, the 25th Amendment? How do these people live with themselves? They're all cowards. They're all shills. They're hacks. They're disgusting.
Biden had a total of 9 cabinet meetings in his term, 9. Now, we don't know how many cabinet meetings presidents typically have, so let's take a look at Obama and Trump. Well, Obama had 19.
That's 2 terms.
Trump had 25.
1 term, 25.
Yeah, and I remember people criticizing Trump for not having enough press conferences, not having enough meetings.
Which is ridiculous. That was all lies, obviously. Trump was out in front of that podium every day during COVID. Too much, actually. It probably hurt him. He should have taken a break for a while. But Trump, have you ever seen a president go into that press room and just off the cuff start taking questions any more than Donald Trump ever did? It's not even close.
He did 25, Biden only did 9. I'm gonna say something here that's also super damning of our national media. No one broke the story for 4 years. So apparently Biden's entire staff knew that he was in mental decline for 4 years, and not one reporter or news organization in mainstream media could break this story.
I know.
And I'll tell you why, because they're not trying to break that story.
Yeah, 100% they're not trying to break that story. Peter Doocy on Fox, he's their White House correspondent. He would try to question people about it, and he would get, basically told to go away all the time. He was the only one you ever really saw who was questioning Biden's mental acuity from pretty early on. Everybody else, they're all cowards. They're all in on it. It's all one big cabal. That's all it is.
This piece does show Biden having all of these sort of walls up.
Yeah.
And the walls kept getting higher and higher as the years went on.
This is the biggest scandal in America. And the level and volume of people who dedicated themselves to lying to everyone at home about this man's condition for 4 straight years up through this summer is breathtaking. It's a scandal of epic proportions. And it's a fair question to ask, who is running the country? Who has been running the country? And as I said earlier, if you're worried about Donald Trump's advisors having influence, for the last 4 years, apparently this president, duly elected, but this president was not
duly elected. Okay.
capable of fulfilling the duties of the office. And his staff and the White House lied about it and kept it from the American people. It's an absolute scandal.
Scandal? Again, subpoena for all of them from the families of those military members that lost their lives in Afghanistan. Isn't this treason? Couldn't this be considered treason?
Look, I'll say 2 things. One is that I think Joe Biden, despite all this, had a very successful tenure. You may disagree, but I think on policies, a Democrat, he had a very successful.
Right, his policies as a Democrat, he was successful. Your policies, all they do is ruin everything. So yes, as far as that goes, yes, he was very successful at ruining everything and destroying the country. Congratulations.
4 years. But there's a bigger problem here, and that is that I think Democrats are at the point where Republicans might have been right after the Bush election, or after the Bush term was up, which is that I think Democrats are starting to mistrust their institutions.
Everything's got to go back to a Republican. It can't just stand on its own, this disaster that's all about the Democrats. They always have to bring some Republican and try to shoehorn it into this narrative somehow. It's nonsense.
And this goes back to a bipartisan effort to lie us into the Iraq War, not just by George Bush, but also by a lot of Democrats.
That's bipartisan. We're talking just Democrats right now. There's no bipartisan going on when it comes to Joe Biden and his cabinet and everybody around him and the media.
It has to do with the fact that Barack Obama did not hold anybody accountable after the 2008 crisis, which also happened in George Bush's watch, but he became president. He never threw a hostage on the tarmac from Wall Street. You saw the rise of Bernie Sanders as a result of that, and you saw a lot of institutional Democrats, me included, saying, no, 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 this is not the time. We have to stick with the institution. And I think you have a lot of Democrats now, me included, who are pretty sick of the institution and trusting people in the institution. And this is
You are the institution. Who are you kidding? Knock it off.
just one example, most recent example, I think, of people institutionally lying to the American people. And what you're ultimately going to see, and I don't have a problem saying this as a Democrat, is that you're going to see a Tea Party version rise up in the Democratic Party based on the fact that this is yet another marker of people just not trusting our leaders anymore.
Your party already is controlled by the, quote, Tea Party version. It's called AOC, the Squad. That's who controls your party. The difference is the Tea Party actually follows the Constitution and what this country was founded on. They follow everything that should be in Russia. So there's the difference. Your party's already under their control, you dummy. You don't see that?
And I'm sorry to say that, but I think we brought this on ourselves.
Yeah, I remember.
And by the way, institutional, you're on one right now. It's called the media, and the media covered it up. They were all in on it together. You don't even see that though, right? That's how lost you are.
So distinctly when the Wall Street Journal's first story came out and the uproar about it among Democrats and the anger that they were making things up. In this story, they have multiple sitting members of Congress on the record talking about how they hardly ever heard from the president. They're chairmen of their respective committees, going all the way back to the Afghanistan withdrawal. I mean, this is something that they told the public was a Joe Biden decision. And according to this article, he was not really a huge part of rationalizing it, even to his own party among the elected officials. Some people even suggested that it didn't matter whether or not he could continue as president, that he should continue to run.
Even after that disastrous debate on this network, there were some people being like, oh, he had a bad night. He had a bad night. You know, and one of the quotes in that Wall Street Journal piece was, you know, there are good days and bad days. Today's a bad day. We'll deal with this tomorrow. The problem is tomorrow never came. It was just one bad day after another. And this kind of shielding President Biden, lying to the American people, telling them, don't believe your lying eyes, is yet another reason why President Trump was so successful. Because people just don't trust what they're being told. When they see clearly there was a decline in President Biden, and you're told, don't believe your own lying eyes, nothing to see here, people go, all right, what else are they lying?
It's gaslighting of epic proportions.
Also in this lame duck period has, I mean, look, we talk about all the time how Democrats ran on Trump being a threat to democracy, but just listen to what has changed between January of 2024 and just yesterday.
Trump's assault on democracy isn't just part of his past. It's what he's promising for the future. He's being straightforward. He's not hiding the ball. The fact that he doesn't abide by the rules of the democracy we've established is not my concern. My job is to make a transition workable and available.
So lying about someone's mental acuity who's the president of the United States and covering for them because they obviously can't do the job, covering for them, that's part of the rules of our democracy. We're not a democracy, by the way, but that's part of it?
That's hard to watch.
I hate this guy.
And I've got nothing for you. I got no excuses for certainly. I think all of America sees what's going on here. I will say I was at the White House this week for a Christmas party, and Joe Biden talked for about 10 minutes.
Yeah, of course you were there, you rhino.
He cracked some jokes, and he was pretty lucid, and it was a good. But it certainly was not prepared, in my opinion, to run the country.
Oh, really? Well, why didn't you say something, Jeff Duncan? You were just too busy bashing Trump?
I do think we need to go back to the conversation that was happening on the campaign trail, and that's about age limits. I think we've got to start figuring out what that looks like. Boardrooms that have billions and billions and billions of dollars of investor money does that. And I know we talk about voters need to have the right, the opportunity to cast those votes, but I do think age limits on that position, it is the most demanding job anybody's ever held in their entire life.
Lightweight.
I'm not for age limits because I do think voters, that's something you can easily discern. And people were discerning that when they were turning against Joe Biden. I just have to ask when the accountability is going to come for every single person who sat in front of a television, who held some position of responsibility and lied their rear end off about what they were seeing behind closed doors. People came on television and said, oh, I'm with him all day, and he's really engaged, and he's doing the job, and he's running circles around us, and these videos are cheap fakes, and on and on and on. Brazen lying by people who work for our government, and they lied to us about it.
What do you have in mind in terms of accountability?
I don't know, but if I were in Congress or...
They should be tried for treason. This is treason. I'm sorry. You think I'm being dramatic? Fine. I don't care. This is treason. That's what it is. You are selling the country out for your own gain. That's treason. You're a traitor.
I were the incoming administration, I would be thinking about, because I agree with you on institutional trust. I think there is a lack of trust across the board. It's happening in your party. It's been happening in my party. How do you ever regain trust if there's no accountability for the people who lied us into the deficit in the first place? That's my question.
And if I'm a Democrat, I would never hire anyone who helped perpetrate this to be in a future administration. How can you regain trust of the American people if you're putting the exact same people back who lied to them?
I think you're opening up a Pandora's box if you want to start investigating people who lie on behalf of their president, because one day there's going to be a Democrat in office after Donald Trump leaves, and I promise you, you don't want that to be happening to your party. But I will also say, to your point,
I don't agree with that.
You don't? You think Donald Trump's been honest? And the people around him have been honest?
Here's what I think. If you go to work for the government.
Well, honest about what? Honest about the fact that he's mentally gone? That's a little different. They're not saying Donald Trump is not mentally gone, and nobody's lying and covering up for the fact that they're saying he's mentally gone. Joe Biden is mentally gone, and they covered it up. Donald Trump doesn't have that issue.
And you stand up at the podium like Kareem has done, and knowingly and fully lie to the American people, because you know full well what you see behind the scenes and what you're saying in front of the podium. I mean, maybe the accountability is they never get hired again.
Like it was the largest inauguration crowd in the
Is that
history.
as consequential as this?
You're equivocating Trump's inauguration crowd when they said the crowd was bigger or not as big. You're equivocating that to it. Just see, this is what I'm talking about. She's equivocating that to the last 4 years of people telling us that Biden was all there and everything was fine. This is what I'm talking about. These lightweights. It's just a lightweight.
But it's a lie.
Well,
But it's a lie.
I think it's a systemic problem, right? Because I agree with your comments around somebody hiding the fact that Joe Biden was unable to do his job and casting all these fake narratives. But I'll also say those same stories came out of the Trump's White House also. Like when
the Reagan administration.
They always got to try to again shoehorn Trump into it somehow. It's TDS. It's TDS.
Wall Street Journal expose.
There was a 2020.
And now they have MDS, Musk derangement syndrome. All right, MDS. Let's start that new one. MDS. Put that in the comments. Hashtag MDS, Musk derangement syndrome.
The election. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
If there were, you call it fake news.
But
That's
I
the
haven't heard him
difference.
say that. Thank you for saying that. But I haven't heard him say that.
I don't want to. I think this is a Joe Biden conversation, but I mean, I think the point Jeff is making, we know for a fact Donald Trump spent a lot of time in that space between the Oval Office watching television when January 6th was occurring.
Okay, but no one is saying they have to shut down the White House because he's not with it today. This man is awake 23 hours a day. He's clearly engaged. And the American people just elected him over somebody who was much younger. I will point out to you. My question is this. That we elect people for a reason. The elected leadership of the government is supposed to be making decisions. For 4 years, the unelected have been in charge of our country during critical moments. We don't live in a country where the unelected are supposed to rule us. We live where the elected are supposed to rule. My problem is for 4 years we were lied to about who's actually running the country. This is a problem.
So there you go. And you have Democrats around that table, Abby Phillips. It always goes back to Trump. We got to shoehorn Trump into the conversation somehow. It has nothing to do with Trump. Nothing. This has to do with you, Abby Phillips, and every other Democrat around that table. And Jeff Duncan is a Democrat. I don't care what he says. He's a Democrat if there ever was one. Okay? All of you. You're disgusting. You need to be held accountable somehow. Now that you don't work in government, so you should just be basically thrown off the air. Why should anybody trust anything that comes out of your mouth ever again? Why? But these people that worked in government and covered for Joe Biden, they should be charged with treason. I don't care. Treason. Put in the comments. You disagree? Tell me what charge they should. Tell me. They should be charged with something, and I say it's treason. Tell me I'm wrong. Please like, share, and subscribe. Definitely hit that like button. If you made it this far, definitely hit the like button for me. I'd appreciate it. We'll see you next time right here at Opinions Vary.
Opinions vary.